Hey Ashwin, can you tell me where you work? Can you tell all of us where you work, what the company is based around, and what you specialize in?
Yeah, absolutely. So I work at iProspect. It's under Dentsu, which is the parent company. It's
Mm.
actually a very global company. The headquarters, I believe, is in the UK,
Mm-hmm.
and I actually interned there as a college student between my third year and my senior year.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of got to know the company a lot more then, and now I'm working full time in it. I believe it's in over 20 countries.
Mm.
I right now work in Boston, and it's a full service agency, so it does everything from SEO to paid, social paid search
Mm-hmm.
to even like a lot of the content creation side of it. So it really operates as like a full agency, a full service agency, and I feel like I'm learning a lot about these different aspects of SEO and paid search and whatnot at the company. So
Nice.
yeah.
And are you specializing in a certain area of SEO, or are you kind of doing all of it? So on page, off page, technical.
So I'm doing mainly on page.
Mm.
That's usually how it works with the teams.
Mm-hmm.
The teams that I work with.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of technical SEO, some keyword research and stuff. Not too much content creation because the clients who we work with are usually like pretty big clients, and they have
Yeah.
like teams that specialize in content creation and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So in that side of things, sometimes we kind of go over the content that they're planning on publishing, and then we kind of make our SEO edits to them.
Mm.
But it's a lot more technical than content.
Right. And how long have you been doing this for?
So I joined this agency last year in July, so it's been just about 10 months.
Mm.
Yeah, so the 1 year is approaching soon.
Yeah. So how has it been? Do you feel like you're still a bit of a beginner, or you're kind of experienced enough now, or are you an expert?
I definitely wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I'd say I'm like experienced because at this point I have probably about 2 years of SEO experience.
Mm.
So, I kind of got into it in 2019, 2020 when I started
Mm-hmm.
to really understand what it was about. And then I was working with some projects that involved SEO. And then, now I really kind of have like a deeper understanding of the various elements that make up SEO. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I'd definitely say I'm like, starting to be an expert, but not an expert yet.
Yeah, you see, the thing with SEO, and that's one thing that I really like about it, is that you kind of never stop learning. Do you feel the same?
Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially with like keeping up with Google's like algorithm changes and
Oh
what
my
Google
God.
like, yeah, what Google ranks as like the most
Mm.
important. This stuff changes every few months. So
Mm.
it's really good to stay informed and read the news and read about the new updates so that you can give your clients kind of the best experience and the most valuable insight.
Mm, yeah, a hundred
Yeah.
percent. So you said iProspect is quite a big agency, isn't it? From what I gathered.
Yeah, so the way it works is like the parent company is Dentsu, and they have a bunch of other smaller agencies under it. So there's
Mm.
iProspect, there's one called Isobar, one
Mm.
called Carrot. So these
Mm.
are all different agencies, are all under the Dentsu like umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, iProspect I think is the biggest one out of all the
Yeah.
agencies, but it's a really big like a network under Dentsu, and you
Mm.
meet some really smart people there. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And what is there a type of clients you guys service, or is it just anyone who comes on? You said they're quite big. Is there a certain niche that gravitates more towards you guys?
So industry-wise, we go across, basically every industry, and
Mm-hmm.
the majority of our clients are like the Fortune 500 clients, like the ones that, P&G, Samsung,
Mm.
Apple, whatnot. So I actually
Mm.
work with P&G.
Oh my
So
gosh.
so I manage a lot of the SEO for their shaving brands. So
Mm.
Gillette, Braun, Venus, which is the female one,
Mm.
and a few other like smaller niche sites. So it
Mm-hmm.
just comes. So I work with the PNG team, SEO, and then there's a PNG paid search. There's a PNG
Oh
paid
yeah.
social team. So that's the way
Mm.
it's kind of divided in iProspect. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm kind of working with that whole consumer good side of things with SEO.
That sounds really cool. And the team, how big is your SEO team?
So for my client,
Mm-hmm.
like for P&G SEO, it's just four of us.
Mm-hmm.
So four of us work with the SEO people at P&G, the marketing people there.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, but then when looking at, other clients and other teams, like some of them are a lot bigger. I believe like, some of the like electronics companies, like tech firms have
Mm-hmm.
big teams
Mm-hmm.
because they have like, of course, a lot of needs and all that.
Yeah.
But for me, it's a pretty small team.
That sounds really cool, actually. And so, how many clients would you work with at a given time?
So usually it's just like one.
Mm-hmm.
So like I'm basically only doing work for P&G shaving.
Mm-hmm.
Although, depending on needs and all that, other teams might pull you in for a project and then you might
Mm-hmm.
work on like a ad hoc kind of basis on other,
Mm-hmm.
clients. But
Yeah.
mainly I work with P&G. So
I mean, I assume their SEO needs would be pretty broad, right? And it's going to be a
yeah,
big website, so a lot of changes to be made.
yeah. I mean, they have a lot of things obviously like
Mm-hmm.
set up already properly. I mean, this is a big company, so they've been working on it for years, but there's always optimizations to be made
Mm-hmm.
and, things they want to see on their website. So we cater to that. So
Right. That sounds amazing. I mean, if you can you go into more detail? So maybe your day to day, and so you're working with P&G. What kind of things would you do on like your busiest day, and then your most like lax day for them?
yeah, so we have like these deliverables that we kind of work on every year. So a lot. So we have, for example, competitor analysis, looking at
Mm-hmm.
various technical SEO elements that the competitors are doing that we're not doing. Looking at other ways that like the competitors have like a upper hand on us, and then we look at not just one or two, but like 4 or 5 competitors. So like really evaluate the areas that we're lacking, and then we look at obviously the areas that we are doing better than our competitors at, which is a lot too. And then we'd have like internal analyses using tools like Screaming Frog and whatnot to look at areas of the site like that we have to optimize still. Say there's a bunch of meta descriptions or titles that are missing from one section of the site. So we kind of put together a task for that. So a lot of it is kind of just planning for new content that they're planning on publishing and making sure that SEO is set for that. So the day-to-day really varies depending on what the clients prioritize, but those are just kind of examples of things that I work on.
What do you usually work with, like WordPress or Magento or?
So WordPress sometimes, as well as Drupal. I'd say WordPress is probably the most like user friendly. They have like tutorials and different plugins that really help with like executing certain tasks. So I guess that is like if you're a beginner, that's pretty handy. But for experienced people, I think Drupal has a lot of like advanced features and things that are really helpful for like those who know their way around a CMS.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, it all sounds pretty challenging. I'm sure there are lots of blockers at a given point. So what would you say are the biggest challenges if you just had to name a few?
Yeah, so when we work on some of these deliverables, we work with the client and then as well as the dev team, the development engineering teams. So when it comes to things like Core Web Vitals, like looking at the mobile website and things like that, a lot of our recommendations are then taken to like other teams in the client side, and then sometimes that takes a long time. And sometimes they circle back, a few weeks later, and then it's just kind of like working with teams that have other priorities, and managing time and all that can be a little bit tough when you want something done quickly that may not be the way that they have it structured. So that's, I guess, definitely a challenge. But apart from that, just working with the clients that we regularly work with, things are very smooth, and we all know what we're doing. So it's either not replying, or if they have like a backlog of other tasks that they have to do. So naturally yours is put towards the but then again, like being the agency side, like working with the clients, it's really we're giving them everything, so it's up to them how long they want to take, what they want to do, because as for us, like we did the work, we gave the recommendations, so it's like up to them with the way they prioritize their tasks. So yeah.
That's a good way to think about it. I mean, I'm not as patient as you. I think that it's working with larger agencies is when it takes more time because they've got so many things on their plate. So what has been really, really insightful about the position? If you have any personal case studies about something you worked on that was super beneficial for any client, if you could share that with us.
Yeah, so I think one thing that's been really insightful is looking at some of these newer companies in the space that I work at. So consumer goods like e-commerce. So the competitors of like the brands that I work with, looking at how they are really prioritizing SEO. Because I think one thing what a lot of these newer companies do right is that they see the value of SEO. And they know how like important it is, because I feel like now more than before people are realizing the value of it. So naturally, if you're like a company that's been started in the last 5-10 years, as opposed to like P&G, which has been operating for like decades, they kind of they're very quick with like understanding what they need to get more leads and whatnot. And SEO is always a big it's always like up there with the most important element to get leads.
Why do you think it wasn't popular before? Because I guess to us as specialists, it seems so straightforward. SEO is a must for any business. So why is everyone so late on realizing that?
I think it's just, with the whole advancement in paid media and, paid search, and how, everyone thought advertising was the best way to get leads, and kind of going out to your customer and trying to like attract them is the best way. I think SEO, what's so great about it is that you're not actually going out and like pestering someone with a paid ad to get them to buy your product. It's things that people search anyways. And like, you want to just optimize your website to what people out of their own will would go and search and go find out. And I feel like people have realized the value in that. The value in like people naturally, what kinds of keywords they search for every month, and as opposed to like finding related, ways to target people through ads and all that. I guess the whole privacy with ads maybe helps helps our industry. Definitely a lot of synergies with SEO and paid search. Like we do work with the paid search teams a lot, and there's value in that, but SEO is organic, and it's I think that's something I like a lot about it. It's long term, it's organic. It's not like I can just put that much like a budget aside for a paid search campaign right now and get people. It's like more planning long term. And that's one of the things I like about it, actually.
It is very sustainable, isn't it? It's like a long-term strategy, but I guess people also don't like to wait, so they want immediate effects. And if they don't see that, I mean, a month is a long time to wait, and if you're putting money into something, you'd be quite worried, wouldn't you? But I mean, it's proven its worth.
Exactly. You just need a little bit of patience with SEO, but the results will come if you're consistent. So.
Can you share a bit about the first few months or the first year of your journey? So how did you get into it? What made you choose SEO, or how did SEO choose you?
Yeah, of course. I think it's more like SEO chose me. The way that I got into it is because I knew a little bit about what it was, but I didn't really know the specifics of it. So when I graduated from college, it was like right during COVID, when things were closing down, no one was hiring. It was like a scary time. And so I sent in like over 100 applications to different marketing positions, like not even like very generic analytics types of roles. And the one offer that I got, I just, took it immediately, even though it wasn't at the company that I wanted or the biggest company. It was a small marketing agency, also like based in Boston. And, working in that job, a lot of it was like data analytics, but then I was pulled into this SEO project, and I really saw the value in SEO. My coworker at the time taught me some aspects about SEO and how it works, because I knew a little bit, but not too much at that time. And then I really got into it. I did my own research, and then that became something that I kind of specialized in that position. And that kind of led me into my job that I'm at right now, which is like basically just focused on SEO. And I feel like I have a lot more, in-depth insight about it now than I did before. But I'm very thankful that, I was pulled into that project because that made me realize like the value of SEO.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when it was just the beginning, I'm sure it was confusing to start off with. What tools did you use? What YouTube videos did you watch, or what courses did you take?
Yeah, good question. So the first tool that I used was Screaming Frog. That
Mm.
was, I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's just, all the URLs and in your domain and which ones are optimized, like how many redirects are in place and whatnot. So looking at all these different columns, like Screaming Frog is like a pure SEO tool. So just like looking at these different columns and like what they evaluate, just like gave me a lot of insight about what SEO is. Like I'm looking at the 301 redirects. I'm looking at which pages are in the index, and all that. So it's just like a lot of just exploring and getting your hands dirty with these tools and learning it. Also used YouTube, of course, for tutorials with Screaming Frog, as well as these other tools like we have SEMrush, Bright Edge, which are more keyword focused. So those are kind of the three tools that I use most in my current job. But there's a whole suite of different, tools for different aspects of SEO.
Yeah. Do you guys use Ahrefs at all?
We do. Yes.
Yeah. Did you know that Ahrefs was founded in Singapore?
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
All good things come from Singapore.
Yeah.
A bit of context for everyone. We went to school in Singapore. That is why I mentioned this. So you use Screaming Frog, SEMrush. Do you guys use GT metrics at all, or how do you measure page speed?
So we use Google Search Console for some of the page speed insights, as well as like Google page speeds at like web, like their link, which is honestly what we use, I think, more than even Search Console. But yeah, those are what we use for that.
Yeah, fair enough. And I had a question about Screaming Frog. So someone said or had the opinion that Screaming Frog is the most powerful tool for SEO. Agree or disagree, and why?
I would say if I were to choose one tool, then yes, I would agree. Just because when looking at technical SEO, it's a very it's a software that has like all the elements. It's very holistic, so you kind of get the whole view of the domain and like exactly which URLs in the domain are, for example, creating problems, which ones are optimized well. So if you want to pinpoint exactly where your website's lacking, it's a tool that has like specific insights, and it really tells you like right here is where you guys are not doing well, and over here these are great. As opposed to for example, SEMrush and Bright Edge have its own, they're like valuable in their own way, but in the end it's just looking at keywords and what keywords to optimize, as opposed to looking at your website in particular, what URLs in particular are lacking. So if I were to choose one, I would probably say yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely agree. But it depends on what you want to focus on. So I think that technical on page and off page, when they're done together and they're done well, that is when your website will start performing very well in search results. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. SEO is split into on page and off page, so it's good to look at both of those, of course.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess if the client is quite a big company, then you would have to do less link building because they've got so many referring domains already and they've kind of proven their credibility.
Exactly. I think that's another reason why we don't do too much off page, because they're already like the leaders or the number two in their industry, even when it comes to like backlinks and all that. So there's not too much extra work we need to do over there.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, this is the question that everyone asks. So how do you rank first, or how do you rank on page one? So can you share your experience of you ranking your client's website on page one, and what are the most immediate steps to take without going too much into all the complex details?
Yeah. Well, that's what every SEO wants to know, right? Like the secret sauce. And I guess it's a lot of it is like looking at not just the highest performing keyword. I mean, the keywords that have the highest search volume that you want to get your website ranked for, but also the keywords that bring in the most traffic. I mean, the keywords that, people are really searching for that are maybe a little more specific, that may not have the search volume that you want, but in the end, like the click-through rate will be pretty high.
Yeah.
Because there may not be other sites that are optimized for that exact keyword or phrase. So optimizing for like a maybe 10, 20 high performing but not super competitive keywords, and making sure that your website, your domain is ranked well for those keywords that bring in qualified traffic is, I'd say, very important. Just to get a list of 10 and 20 like relevant keywords. I'd say that is a great start to getting on page one.
So would you say that keyword optimization is really up there when you take on a project?
Definitely. I mean, with my client, of course, it's like there are other elements of SEO that are very much like close to perfect. So keywords is what we're like worried about. But with other websites, which are maybe a little newer or not optimized technically, I feel like those elements should be worked on first, and then maybe go on to keywords. So you want to make sure that your website is like, it looks good on mobile, that it's not too slow, the core web vitals are all set. Like given all of that, I would say the next step is to really optimize on keywords.
Yeah, that is a really good point.
I mean, the whole blueprint is there with what needs to be done to optimize. So if you do everything that everything that you need to do in the SEO lens, then sooner or later, I think Google's algorithm will pick it up and will start ranking you accordingly to what they believe is fair. And when you have all the checkboxes, you should be ranked pretty good. Given that, you're obviously, you have those keywords set and whatnot for those, keywords in your industry, but, it's a lot of it is just making sure that you check a lot of these elements of SEO off when you're making your site.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned page speed. So core web vitals are obviously really important. How do you optimize for speed?
That's a good question. For page speed insights, actually, a lot of the actual work that needs to be done is done by the dev team, like in the client side. So what we do is we just put together like the elements that need to be optimized. For example, looking at first contentful paint, like in a website, kind of the first thing that you see at the top, if that is slowing down the whole website, then we kind of give them that insight that, the first contentful paint is like 5 seconds, which is too much, so we kind of just tell them that in an SEO lens, what elements of their website need work, and then they kind of do it. So when it comes to like implementing the core web vitals, that's not something that like I have too much experience in, or my team does. It's kind of just working with the engineers and the client side, to make sure that those are optimized.
Yeah, definitely. And so when you look at a new website, imagine you get a new client. What do you do first?
I would say, first of all, it always starts with running a crawl on Screaming Frog, always, because that reveals a lot about what you may not see going on the website. It'll like Screaming Frog will reveal all the issues and everything that needs to be worked on, right? So I think really looking at the pages that are on the index that they put in their index file, and looking at which one of them have 404 errors, 504s, which one of them are broken. Those are, I think that's one very important step to fix that, and make sure that 301 redirects are in place or canonical links are in place, so that when users go on these links, they're not just taken to a broken link, because of course that hurts the user experience. So making sure that there are no 404s or 504s, I think is very important. Making sure every page lives under a folder or a path is also very important. Sometimes when clients like launch a new page, they forget to like link it under another page. and Google actually looks at all that and they say, hey, this blog article is not even under the blog section. Like they look at it as like another product page maybe. So it's very good to be organized with, the page URLs and all that. And I feel like smaller clients miss out on that step. So those two are very important. And then of course, making sure that the website is not too slow, or it's not like the mobile experience isn't poor. Sometimes, clients, not the clients I've worked with, but clients that I've heard about from, other peers, they have like a mobile site, which is basically their desktop into a mobile, which is absolutely the wrong way to do it, because things aren't, you can't even see certain text, and it's just not a good experience with customers who are now very much mobile first, right? Like, as time goes on now, people are only going to use their phones more and make purchases through their phones more. So it's very important to make sure that your mobile site is optimized. So I guess those three things are three important things that I look at when it comes to new, smaller clients.
Yeah, definitely. And if you were to give a word of advice to anyone who's just a beginner, what would you say?
I would say do your research and make sure you know every single element with SEO and why it's important. For me, it's like I really got into SEO because I was looking at, hey, like the things that I search for organically, like how are they ranking and why are some websites on top of like others? And a lot of times the brands that you know and hear about aren't the number one brands ranked because there's some elements that they're lacking in with SEO. And just make sure that every single thing that constitutes to SEO, that you're aware of it and you know its value and you know why it's important.
Yeah. So I think we've covered quite a lot today, and I just want to say thank you so much. I'm super grateful for your time, and I really hope that anyone who watches this is going to use your advice if they want to go into SEO as well.
Yeah, it was great to be here. Thanks for hosting. And this was great.
See you soon.